All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company. If you are a returning customer, welcome back. Welcome to our classes in 2025. If you're a new customer, welcome. Well, not necessarily a new customer to Giant or Martin's, but a new Wellbeing class customer. We welcome you to our classes. They are so fun. We have such a great community here. You get to learn about nutrition, healthy recipes, and we have such a great community here. So welcome to our classes. Not everybody maybe is focusing on weight management this month, but it may be something you're interested in, either just learning about or maybe diving into yourself. So this is a series we're doing this month through our Wellbeing Connection course or series. We have a 3-part series. Today, there's a lot we could talk about with weight management. It is such a hefty topic, but we're going to do just a basic 101. And then at the end, I'll tell you what the other 2 topics are to make sure you are all set for everything you might need going forward. And let us get started. So our overview for today. As I mentioned, this is a topic where we could talk about so many different things, but I really just want to give you a background information about what it kind of takes to, lose weight, what some common pitfalls are, what energy balance really is, how to do it sustainably if you do want to get started, and then maybe some strategies, things you could start doing now that really will have long-term benefits. Now, not everybody wants to lose weight, needs to lose weight. Certainly, that is perfectly fine. But there are some potential health benefits of healthy, sustainable weight loss or maintenance. A lot of times we forget about the fact that, yes, maybe you want to lose a certain amount of weight, but the actual maintenance of it long term is even more important. So for a lot of people, these health benefits could include a reduced risk of certain chronic health conditions, such as heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Not everybody who has excess weight will develop these conditions, but some people will, and losing weight may help manage or maintain or even prevent these conditions. For a lot of people, if you have a lot of weight to lose, excess weight can have an impact on your joints. So losing some weight may help with that. There are certain types of cancers that have weight-related risk factors. So things like breast cancer and prostate cancers and endometrial cancers. Not to say that weight is the only thing that can potentially lead to those. It's one of many factors. So you can potentially reduce your risk by losing some weight. Increased energy levels. Many people say that when they lose even a modest amount of weight, their energy levels skyrocket. And it could be multifactorial. It could be the fact that you've lost that weight, and that can come with inflammation and different things, but also the factors and habits you're doing to lose that weight, like sleeping better and exercising and eating better, they may help you feel more energetic too. Improved metabolic health. So that goes back to the cholesterol and diabetes and just different hormones. Sometimes when we have excess weight, some of these hormones related to hunger and fullness cues can really get a little bit messed up. And improved mood for many reasons. So these are just some of the benefits that potentially could come from even a modest weight loss, if that's something you want to do. Now, how do we lose weight? What is some kind of basic background information related to losing weight? So we kind of have this concept of an energy balance, right? And weight loss and energy balance and calories, it can be super simple, but it is also super complex. So I'm going to talk about these things simply, knowing that we are human beings who live in the world, who have all these things going on. So even though it is simple, within us, it is also a very complex topic. So energy in versus energy out. The energy we consume through calories, and that's what calories are at the end of the day. We think of them as this negative thing, but really it is just the fuel you need to do everything you need to do. So that's the energy we take in through foods, beverages, all of that, and then the energy we expel, our energy out. So I'll talk on another slide about all the different things that burn energy too. So very simply stated, calories, the definition of that, it really is just the units of energy from the food we consume that our body uses to do everything. And in terms of energy balance, again, very simply stated, if you want to just maintain exactly where you are right now, roughly your calories in needs to match your calories out. That's just, your homeostasis, you're staying exactly the same, and your weight will be stable. If you want to lose weight, you need to be in what we call a deficit. So our calories that we take in need to be less than the calories we expel. And that will, in theory, in most cases, if we're doing it correctly long term, will lead to weight loss. Again, I have a couple more details we'll go into. And then a calorie surplus. So we have more calories we're taking in than the calories we're expelling. This can, in theory, lead to weight gain. And of course, there are people who want to lose weight, but we also dietitians, we talk to people who need to gain weight too. So this works in many different ways. And there are many factors that affect that energy balance. So factors that can influence the expenditure. So again, we'll talk about calories and where they come from and what foods have more calories than others, especially over this series. But how are we getting rid of calories? How are we using them? So very basically, just to survive, your body is burning calories. We can call this a couple different things. You may see it listed as your resting metabolic rate or your basal metabolic rate. This is really, they're used interchangeably. They're slightly different, but for today's purposes, we're going to kind of talk about them interchangeably. But this is really the energy that's required to live for your basic functions, for your breathing. That takes calories. For your heart to beat and your blood to pump through your body, for cells to regenerate, for, wound healing, or maybe you just got over some cold. All of that takes energy. And it takes a lot of energy too, which I'll show you. Additionally, so this is where a lot of things come into play. Everybody burns a different amount of calories at rest. We're all very different. And things that play a factor in that can include genetics. So just who you are as a person and your genetic background and your family history. But this could also include health conditions you may have. So there are certain people who have different metabolic conditions that make it harder to lose weight. It doesn't mean that the whole calorie balance, the calories in, calories out, that still affects you, but it means that you might just be burning fewer calories at rest. And that's a real big bummer. But that's something that is a part of your resting metabolic rate. Age can also play a factor. The older we get, in theory, our metabolic rate slows down, not as much as we used to think, but it can slow down over time. And a lot of that also plays into our body composition and our size. As we get older, sometimes we lose lean muscle mass, and muscle burns a lot more calories than our fat mass does. So, a super important reason to maintain your muscles as you get older. One, it helps you do all the functions we need to do, but it also can help you keep that metabolic rate going. And then gender can also play a factor too. So sometimes males will burn a little bit more calories than females, but that's not set in stone either, because a lot of things can play a factor into that. Then what a lot of people think about as our energy expenditure, your activity level. So this could be exercise, things you're actually planning to do, physical activity. This could be running on a treadmill. It could be taking a jog outside, or it could be weight training. Could be a lot of different things, but these are actual physical activities you're doing. Then we have one that people don't think about quite as much that actually has a big impact on our, expenditure of calories, and it's referred to as the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Super long term. The acronym is NEAT, which I like. But this is any physical activity that isn't formal exercise. A lot of people don't like to exercise, and that's okay. We should exercise regardless of if we want to lose weight, because it's good for our heart health and good for our muscles. But there are other things you can be doing that can make a big difference in how many calories you use per day. And this can be things like maintaining your posture. So it takes more, energy to keep yourself upright and nice and straight than it does to be sitting on the couch, right? Maybe you've decided to get a standing desk. If you're standing more, you're going to burn more calories than you are sitting. Walking more. So walking, yes, is a good activity, good exercise, but if we're just doing it as a part of our lives, it falls more into that neat category. So this could be, oh, I spelled stairs wrong. So taking the stairs or, parking farther away when it's safe to, or, taking more trips from your car when you're getting your groceries. All these little things, they sound small, but they really do add up. And one they research quite a bit is people who fidget actually burn a lot more calories than people who don't. So that can be just a part of your genetics and if you are a fidgeter, but that all is movement at the end of the day. And then a final one that a lot of people don't know about is what we refer to as the thermic effect of food. So it takes energy to digest and absorb the nutrients from our foods. So to digest, absorb, metabolize that food, it takes calories. And this is kind of a basic view of what that looks like in terms of breakdown. And of course, everybody's different, so your percentages may be different and it's hard to test it accurately. But generally speaking, your basal metabolic rate, so those calories you're burning just by breathing and your heart pumping, that's the majority of the calories you're burning per day. So even if you did nothing all day, you still need to eat food because your body is doing all of those things to keep you alive. So that's your BMR. It's about 60 to 70% of the calories you burn in a day. Then we have that NEAT, or the non-exercise activity you're doing. You're standing up, you're walking around, you're getting your laundry, you're doing all these things. Maybe you're a fidgeter. That actually takes up a lot more calories than regular exercise. We tend to overestimate how many calories we burn through exercise. So focusing on those habits that can just make you more active all day long, way more important. We should be exercising too, but not necessarily just for calorie burn. Then the EAT, that's the exercise portion. It is still a good portion and it's one you have a lot of control over. So you certainly could add more exercise to your day. And then the TEF is that thermic effect of food, which again burns a significant amount of calories too. Foods like protein-rich foods like meats and beans and nuts and seeds, our body takes a long time to break those down. So shifting and eating more foods that have protein and even fiber can actually increase that number too. So these are all just little details to show you weight loss and weight maintenance is a complicated topic, right? There are, of course, other factors that affect energy balance, especially the amount of calories we consume and where they're coming from. Because yes, while all calories are equal, a calorie from a bagel is going to be the same as a calorie from an apple because a calorie is just a unit of measure. Just like if you're going 10 miles per hour on a bike, it's the same speed as 10 miles per hour in a car, but how we're doing it is a little bit different. So very quickly, we're going to discuss the different macronutrients or the things that make up the foods we eat. The first one being carbohydrates or carbs. These are the body's main energy source. Of course, when people want to lose weight, for some reason, we demonize carbs and think they're inherently bad. Certainly not the case. There are different types of carbohydrates. We have more simple carbs that are typically in the form of sugars. Again, not necessarily bad. And then we have more complex carbohydrates that we get in the form of things like whole grains, vegetables, beans, nuts, and seeds, things that have a lot of fiber typically. Now, this is where it kind of comes into the energy balance equation. Per gram of a carbohydrate, we get 4 calories. You don't really need to think about this a whole lot, but at the same time, when you look at, a nutrition label and you're wondering like, how did they calculate these calories? You would take the grams of carbohydrate and multiply that by 4, and that's how many calories you get from carbohydrates. And again, carbs are so important. They provide fuel for our brains, for our muscles. Our muscles love glucose and carbohydrates. And so it is really important for physical activity and brain function. Carbs, especially fiber-rich ones, also keep us full longer. They're good for our heart health. So there's a lot of great reasons to consume them. Then we have protein-rich foods. So these are essential for muscle repair, growth, satiety, so also for keeping us fuller longer. Because if weight loss is your goal, you want to be eating foods that keep you full because a lot of times we're reducing our calories and then our body reminds us, hey, I need to eat if we're not eating foods that are quite satiating. So sources, of course, can include things like lean meats and proteins, things like chicken, and lean sources of, meat like ground beef or like maybe the 90-10 or pork or things like that. Then we have fish and shellfish, beans, dairy foods will have protein, and then different types of nuts and seeds. Whole grains will also have some protein too. Like carbohydrates, for each gram of protein you have, it's 4 calories. It'll make more sense why I'm mentioning this in a second too. Now, the role again of protein, as I mentioned, can help preserve muscle mass while we're losing weight. A lot of times people will go on super low calorie diets and they'll do a juice cleanse or something, and they're eating no protein. Yes, you may lose weight quickly, but you're losing a lot of muscle mass, which is very difficult to kind of rebuild. So we want to make sure if we're on a weight loss journey, we are definitely eating enough protein. And then, of course, we can't forget about fat sources as well. So, fats are a concentrated energy source, meaning they're very calorically dense. There are many types of fats. We have healthier fats that we find in things like plants that are unsaturated, so things like monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, nuts and seeds, avocados, plant type foods. And then we have less healthy fats. We still need some saturated fat in our diet, but predominantly most people are consuming too much from animal sources and deep fat fried foods and things like that. And trans fats are ones we definitely want to avoid. Now here, as you can see, the calorie content of fat is 9 calories per gram. So it's over double the amount of calories per gram than carbs and protein. So this is just to show really high fat foods or oils and things like that add up calorically really quickly. So if you are cooking something, and even though we're using a healthy oil, maybe like olive oil, it's still going to have a lot of calories per gram. So we're just, we need to eat it because fats help support cell function. They help us produce hormones that we need, and they help us absorb certain vitamins like vitamin D, which is super important during the winter. So we definitely need fat. We just want to be careful of how much fat we're consuming because the calories add up very, very quickly. But all 3 macronutrients are so important for overall health and for weight loss too. Now, there are so many different ways to lose weight, and there's a lot of different rules of thought out there, but categorically, there's some things we want to consider. Unfortunately, most people who lose a significant amount of weight tend to regain it 2 to 3 years later. Super disappointing. But there are some ways to prevent that. Often, the people who lose a lot of weight and then gain it all back, the reason that's happening is because they were doing it in an extremely restrictive way and they were doing it really, really quickly too. Of course, maybe you have a goal of losing a certain amount of weight because a certain event is coming. I would think about that a little bit more because very likely you did not gain the amount of weight you want to lose in that short amount of time. And certainly it's not going to be easier to lose it than it was to gain it, right? So we often do these rapid, extreme things to lose weight, but then that messes up with our metabolism and our hormones. And of course, we gain it back when we don't sustain those habits that we did to help lose it. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear this, but really a modest reduction in weight, 5 to 10% of your current weight, really can provide a lot of those health benefits I mentioned, like, improved energy levels, improved cholesterol, blood pressure, reducing your risk of certain health conditions, 5 to 10%. So if you are setting yourself up for a goal, like I have to lose 50 to 100 pounds, whatever it is, that might be a really good long-term 5-year goal. But right now, if your goal is to lose weight, I would set a much smaller goal. So 5 to 10% for someone who maybe weighs 200 pounds would be about a 10 to 20 pound weight loss. So again, maybe you want to lose more for physique reasons, and that's a perfectly fine goal too. But remembering that for real health benefits, I would shoot for a much smaller goal. And one, it's going to be more achievable, sustainable long term, and it's still going to have all those benefits. So, whatever your starting weight is, do yourself a little mental math, figure out what 5 to 10% of your current weight is, and maybe make that your initial goal to start. In terms of how quickly you want to lose weight, the recommendation is losing no more than a half a pound to 2 pounds per week. 2 pounds a week, unless you have a lot of weight to lose, that's a lot of weight to lose in 1 week. Because think about what you really want to lose. You don't want to lose muscle mass. You want to be losing that fat mass that maybe we have more of, and that takes some time. So when I used to do more counseling, people would be super upset if they only lost a half a pound a week. I'm like, think about all you had to do to lose that half a pound. That is amazing. Anything you go in that direction is good. And you're not necessarily going to lose that half a pound to 2 pounds every single week. Sometimes you may gain a pound. Sometimes you may lose more. Sometimes you may stay exactly the same. Weight loss is never linear. It's going to be kind of a staggered thing. So, don't look at your weight 1 week to the next. Look at it over time, because that's what's going to matter a lot more. So if you're weighing yourself, maybe do it once a week, twice a week. You don't necessarily need to do it every day. I would start looking at your weight loss over time. Maybe compare the whole month instead of saying like, oh gosh, I weighed 200 pounds today, 199 tomorrow, 205 the next day. And if you stopped at that 205, maybe you drop a couple more pounds the next day. So our body fluctuates weight so much based on the foods we eat, how active we are. If we had more salt one day, if you're female, maybe you have your cycle that week. There are so many things that affect that scale number. So don't let it get you down. Now, in terms of how many calories that would need to be to lose that weight, some calorie trackers, let's say you have MyFitnessPal or other apps, Lose It's another one, some might recommend a 500 calorie deficit per day. That's a lot of calories to cut out of your day, especially if you're just starting out. So you can do that, but that might make you feel really restrictive and, like you can't eat anything. You might feel really hungry all the time. So technically, we tend to recommend 100 to 250 calories being your deficit. So let's say you are tracking your calories, you eat about 2,000 calories a day. That would mean you're just subtracting about 100 to 250 calories a day. It seems really small, but you can create that deficit through a combination of diet and exercise. It's going to make your weight loss a little bit slower, but again, that's going to be much more sustainable, and you're not going to feel really deprived and restricted if you're only cutting out about 200 calories a day. And it's really easy to kind of look at your diet and say like, okay, maybe that's the snack that I didn't really need, but I kind of wanted. Or maybe I am going to actually measure the oil that I'm putting into my pan when I'm cooking, because I know a tablespoon of oil has 120 calories. So there's little things, or maybe I'm going to do 1% milk instead of whole milk, because that can save a lot of calories at the end of the day. So trying to aim for that smaller deficit really can help people maintain and lose weight slowly, as opposed to losing weight really quickly and not maintaining it long term. Some other common myths and pitfalls people typically fall into: they set unrealistic goals and they're not setting SMART goals. So I have a slide about SMART goals in a second. So again, maybe instead of setting a 50-pound weight loss goal, maybe you really do start out quite small. Or maybe instead of saying you're going to exercise 3 hours a week and you're not exercising at all right now, maybe you're just going to aim to do 5 minutes of activity every day. It sounds crazy. It sounds like, well, of course I could do that. Do it consistently and then maybe up your goal. Set really realistic goals for you to achieve, because when we achieve those, we get this like dopamine burst and we want to keep doing more and more. Another common pitfall is jumping on the next fad diet bandwagon. Yep, especially happens this time of year. You hear like, oh, your neighbor's doing keto, or this person's doing carnivore, or this person's doing a juice cleanse. Okay, see where they are 5, 6 months from now. Very unlikely that they're keeping it off and they're maintaining that because it's unsustainable for their life long term. So instead of doing that, following these habits that we'll talk about through all of our classes, much more sustainable. Thinking you need to go super low calorie to lose weight. A lot of people do that. And again, we mess with our hormones and our basal metabolic rate, and we feel really deprived and we can't do it long term. So again, following that small deficit can really be an easier way to do it. I didn't talk about it on the, energy balance slide, but there are a lot of calculators out there that you can use to estimate how many calories you need a day. And I say estimate because it doesn't know you as a person, what health conditions you might have, but it does go based on your activity level, your size, your gender, all of these things to kind of come up with a calculation. Then you can subtract the 100 to 50 from that and start trying to aim for that, and it will be much more sustainable. With that, a lot of times we tend to underestimate our calorie intake, so how many calories we eat, but we overestimate how much we expel. So I don't tend to recommend, subtracting the amount of calories you're burning through exercise, because again, it's very hard to estimate how much we're actually burning that way, unless you're doing it scientifically. So I would, exercise for the benefit of it, but not necessarily for the calories. Skipping meals, you're going to be much hungrier later. You tend to overeat and eat more mindlessly. Cutting out entire food groups. So we talked about why each macronutrient is important. So you really don't want to cut any out. You can shift how many you eat of each one, but they're very important, each of them. All or nothing mentality. So, I can never do this. I have to completely cut out sugar. I can never have cake again, whatever it is. Most people find that too restrictive. And then that thing is on, a pedestal, and that's all they think about. Over exercising, one, you can hurt yourself. It's unsustainable as well. And I think this is a really big one here too. People who focus only on the weight or the scale, as opposed to non-scale victories. How are your pants fitting? That's a big one, right? How are the clothes fitting? Maybe you take measurements. How are you feeling? What is your blood pressure? All of these things honestly matter a little bit more than that number on the scale, because like I mentioned, the scale number can fluctuate day to day for so many reasons. All right, I know we're getting close to time. I just have some possible strategies and habits that you can start incorporating today that aren't super, scary or necessarily hard and won't feel really restrictive. I really recommend those small habits, or what we call habit stacking. So do this little habit for weeks on end. Again, it might not lead to super quick weight loss, but that's not necessarily what we want. We want to be able to make a lifestyle change and do this long term. So some things you can try. I know this is a long list. I'll send out the PDF, but some things you can try that will improve your health long term. Focusing on water intake. Give yourself an ounce goal. Maybe you want to track your calories, or maybe you want to track how much fiber and protein you're eating per day. Do a food journal or download one of the many food tracking apps. Do it consistently for a week. And be honest, you're only lying to yourself if you don't track the M&Ms or whatever else you ate. Take the stairs, spelled it correctly this time, and park farther away when it is safe to. Again, that non-exercise activity really adds up. Set small exercise goals, 5 minutes every day, 5-minute walk before dinner, whatever it happens to be. Make it really small and almost like so small that, it seems silly, but then you'll do it. And maybe you'll keep adding 5 minutes till you're doing as much exercise as you really want to. Not drinking our calories can be a really great long-term solution, because we tend to over-consume calories through beverages like coffee beverages and sodas and different things like that. Add an extra serving of veggies. Use smaller bowls or plates and things like that. Or honestly, measure foods you tend to overeat. If you're a snacker and really still want to enjoy the foods you like, try portioning them and seeing how they can fit into your day. And other things, focusing on sleep quality. If we're not sleeping well, there are so many hormones that get out of whack when we don't sleep enough. Hormones that relate to weight loss and our satiety cues. So sleep is a really big factor too. Focus on one, maybe two of these at a time. And although they're not weight specific, we need to change habits to lose weight. So these are some habits that can be helpful. I know we're at 12:30, but setting SMART goals, this is something that can really help you. These are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals. And weight loss is not going to happen overnight. So we want to set goals that are very specific so that nothing is left to chance. So something like, I'm going to add 1 serving of vegetables to my lunch 3 days per week. Again, it gives you a time frame. It gives you details that you can then work on and make changes for. One piece I think when people set goals that they don't always follow through is actually creating an action plan. If you're at work and you do different things, you often create an action plan to hit that goal. So write down how you're going to do these things. Like, how are you going to sleep better? Well, you need to have a set plan. My example, I'm not going to read through all of it, but what if your goal is to eat more meals at home because you know they're going to be better for you? So you are going to write down where you're going to shop. Of course, it's going to be Giant and Martin's, right? Maybe you don't want to go into the store because you might have more temptations and maybe you'll forget things. Order a Giant or Martin's direct order. Order all of those things you want. Challenges. That's one thing you also want to look into. What challenges might you face for this goal? So if your goal is to eat more at home, your challenges might be you get a little bored, or you forget to plan to shop for your groceries, or maybe you don't have a lot of cooking skills right now, or you were invited to eat out with friends. How are you going to cope with some of those? Well, you're going to join more of our well-being classes so you can learn more healthy recipes that are so easy to make. You're going to use savory recipes because you can see all the nutrition breakdowns and you can shop the recipes so you don't even have to create a shopping list. And maybe you'll suggest other activities to your friends. Maybe you'll all cook together. I don't know. Sometimes that can be hard to cook with friends and family, but maybe you'll try it. Okay, we're going to fit it all together. So again, this was just a weight management 101. We have so much more to talk about. But for many people, a modest 5 to 10% weight loss really can have long-term health benefits when it's maintained. Energy balance is simple on paper, but it is also super complex because we're all very unique, different people. All 3 macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fats are so important, and they each have benefits and reasons to consume them. And each category has better for you options too. We want to aim for actionable things that we can do, habits we can maintain, and then build from there. Stack those habits so that they are just a part of your life. If your habit currently is you roll out of bed and you go to work and you don't do any activity, maybe you'll wake up 10 minutes earlier and take a quick 5-minute walk. Maybe you have a treadmill at home that you never use, or an elliptical. Use it for 5 minutes before you take your morning shower. Again, baby habits that we can build on over time. Really simple recipe if you want to make one this week. Really easy meal preppable recipe, an Instant Pot black bean chili. You'll literally throw everything in the Instant Pot, or you could probably do a crock pot. Such an easy recipe, really high fiber, good plant-based protein. We talked about both of those being satiating and good for weight loss. Some resources I will share, so make sure you check out our new Wellbeing page on the Giant Martin's websites. And finally, as a recap, I know we only talked a little bit about weight loss today, but if you join us next Wednesday with Joni, we're going to talk about weight loss medications because you may be interested in learning more. So we'll use our pharmacy team to learn more about that. On the 22nd at 7 p.m., I'm going to talk more about meals and meal inspiration and ways to make your meals a little bit more weight loss friendly. And we'll be making a lightened up meatloaf that day. If you want to register for these, of course, head back to our Eventbrite page. We also, if you're new to our classes, we have hundreds of videos on our YouTube channel too about weight management and a million other things. So I will link directly to this in our recap email as well. But I thank you so much for coming and learning more about weight management today. And I look forward to all of our classes this January. Thanks. Have a good one.